I'm going to say the most obvious but somehow still controversial statement in American socio-political discourse right now. America has a guns problem. No, not just a mental health problem, although that is a problem too. America has a fucking guns problem. And it's very inconvenient to us that the vast majority of mass shooters are white, because if they were black, we would make it into some kind of racial thing. If they were Muslim, we would make it about their religion and terrorism and all that nonsense. But because they are largely white people, we like to say, well, in America we have a mental health problem. We do have a mental health problem in America, but are any of our elected officials suggesting doing anything about it? No. Actually, there is a pretty significant paywall behind, getting access to resources for mental health. They don't actually, give a shit about our mental health. That framing is basically just used to distract from the fact that, yes, whether we like to admit it or not, we have a guns problem. And I'm not necessarily talking about gun ownership. I'm talking about gun culture. I mean, look at some of the responses to the recent mass shooting in Texas. I mean, people were crying that we need to start arming teachers. Teachers. They barely get paid anything to do their job the way things are. And also there's barely room in the budget to give the kids new textbooks, but all of a sudden we have money to give all these teachers guns? That's insane. I shouldn't have to indulge that point anymore. But I guess the most popular argument from gun enthusiasts is the solution to bad guys with guns is to have more good guys with guns. But I hate to break it to you, there were good guys with guns at that incident. There was an armed resources officer at the premises. There were also cops outside of the school, unwilling to go in because the kid had an assault rifle. And the thing about it is, when you start, trying to advocate for assault rifle bans, it seems like the most obvious thing in the world. People like to engage in slippery slope arguments well, they start taking our guns away, well, they're just going to see how much they can get away with, and the Second Amendment says that I have the right to my assault rifles because I need to be able to overthrow a tyrannical government. Well, at that time, people were packing muskets, let's get real, and it says well-regulated militia. That's not what these rednecks want to do with their assault rifles, let's get real for a second. And it doesn't matter if you have all the assault rifles in the world as private citizens, they have tanks, they have drones, you're fucked. Sorry about your luck. It's almost just intrinsically part of American culture. What do we value as Americans? How do we describe ourselves? Well, here in America, we got freedom. But we almost kind of paint freedom in a way it's freedom from the oppressive government. We don't want them regulating anything that we do. We don't expect anything from them. When there's tragedy and there's mass shootings all over the country every single day, we don't expect them to regulate any of that, really. We just expect them to give us unfettered access to guns so we can do something about the symptoms of a much larger problem. Because what we call freedom in America, when placed in a global context, the way that other countries, especially developed countries, look at us as Americans, they see America not as a place of freedom, but more like a free-for-all. We don't do anything. We don't do anything about the gun violence problem. We don't do anything about the mental health problem. And if we suggest the government intervene in any of the problems we have, it's either tyranny when you're talking about possibly restricting some gun sales, or it's socialism when you want to provide anything like mental health services. That is the problem. We are so indoctrinated against our own best interests that of course we are going to have mental health issues. The system is designed for us to have mental health issues, and look, all of us mentally unwell people, there's guns fucking everywhere for us to carry out our deepest, darkest impulses when we're not feeling well. How could anything possibly go wrong with this scenario, with this formula? We need to start reframing this conversation. I know it may be the instinct of more conservative viewers to be like, cry more, lib, but I don't think wanting to stop mass gun violence should be looked at as a leftist point of view. I don't think wanting Americans to have access to healthcare should be written off as a socialist point of view. And you know what? If you feel like you need to own a gun kept locked safely away because it is a cold, dark world and you want to be able to protect your family in the event of a crisis, I understand. I'm not judging. But if you're a gun enthusiast, if you're a gun apologist, it might be time to look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, maybe this isn't right. Maybe I have a problem. Because America does have a mental health problem, but more importantly, America, the United States of America, has a guns problem.